Welcome back, everybody, to the Calaveria podcast. I'm your host, Jose.
And I'm your other host, Samantha.
And that's right, you guys. We are back with another episode. And this one is a very special episode because it is officially Halloween.
Oh, yeah, guys. It's spooky time.
So, this is the moment we were all waiting for, right? This is the time that everybody's going to be, watching scary movies. If you have kids or younger siblings, trick-or-treating, just all around good vibes and just like Samantha said, spooky time, right? So we have a very special episode, as I said. We're going to be sharing some scary stories, but these stories are a little bit special because they all have to do with or revolve around Halloween. And we thought this would be perfect since it is Halloween and, you guys can just sit back, play these while, you're chilling with your family, whatever. So it was just something that just gave you guys to just kind of relax and kick back and enjoy. So, Samantha, what do you have planned for Halloween?
Nothing major. Probably just watching some scary movies,
Is there anything in particular that you're going to watch?
I'm kind of like waiting for that Jordan Peele movie to come out. The one he like co-wrote with Henry Selick, the director of Night Before Christmas and Coraline. And it's just like a stop motion movie. And it seems pretty cool.
Okay, what is that called?
It's called Window and Wild.
Okay, that sounds cool. I like Coraline. I know a lot of people do, so that's interesting. I didn't know that was going to come out. It was going to be coming out like on streaming services, or
yeah, I believe it's coming out on Netflix on October 28th. If you guys want to check that out.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah. What about you though? What are you doing for this Halloween?
I don't really have anything in particular planned. Like you said, it's a Monday, so most likely I'm going to be working, but probably after, I'll probably hang out with my girlfriend, Lolly, obviously, for, who she is. But for those of you that don't know, my girlfriend's name is Lolly. But yeah, I think we might just hang out and watch some scary movies.
Gonna pass out any candy?
Probably not. I know, I usually go over to her house and not a lot of kids trick or treat in that area, which, I guess it's pretty cool because, we're young. We're not going to be waiting outside and waiting for kids to come by. So we get to enjoy ourselves and do whatever we want. But there is a movie that I've been wanting to watch, and I know a lot of people, especially like on TikTok, I've seen that they like talk about it, saying that it's probably one of the best horror movies of like the year.
Which one is it?
It's called Barbarian. Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Okay, so that one's supposed to be coming out on, I believe on HBO Max. So looking forward to watching that. It should be out by the time it's Halloween. I believe it's October 25th when it comes out on HBO Max. So if you guys are hearing this now, this is coming out on Halloween. If you guys are looking for something to watch, that you should give that a go. I heard it has pretty good reviews. But other than that, not much. So I guess just probably order some food, some snacks, and just have fun, I guess. So, if we don't have any other announcements, I think we should just get into the episode.
Yeah, I think we should.
All right, then. In that case, let's begin Halloween stories. Okay, so for this episode, I'm going to go ahead and start off first. And just like with all of our other scary story episodes, most of these stories are going to be coming from Reddit. And especially for mine, I went ahead and tried to use different subreddits. I know we always like to use r/paranormal, so we're going with other ones this time. But our first story is going to be titled, My Son Being Creepy on Halloween. And it is by the user PokesAllItCat. I believe that's how you say it. It's kind of a weird name. So last night I was taking my 5-year-old son to a trunk or treat at church. There really isn't much to do in this town. We had been arguing about music. Mommy, are murderers real? He asked out of nowhere. Yes, baby. Sometimes people kill other people. Will I get murdered? He asked sadly. No, baby. It's my job to keep you safe. I thought this would be the end of it. It wasn't. But what if you get shot in the belly? He asked specifically. Mommy's belly is pretty big. I would have to go to the hospital, but I'll probably be fine. But what if you get shot by the gun that's really a cannon and turns your belly to fire? You probably wouldn't be fine. Oh, we don't have those here. I thought that would be the end of it. Mommy, do they have murderers in the desert? He then asked. Yes, they have murderers in the desert. Oh, he got quiet. The last time I got murdered, I was in the mountains high above the desert. I had a gun that was really a cannon, but it broke and fell apart. It just fell apart and I couldn't get it back together. That's when I got murdered. It would be sad if I got murdered again. Okay. I then turned on Lizzo, which is his favorite. He was pretty quiet for the rest of the ride. We live in the deep south. He has never been to a desert.
What the?
Yeah, so that one, I thought it was so weird because, like kids say the weirdest things.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, she says it in the title, right? She says it in the title. My son being creepy on Halloween. So, like, he's obviously this unexpected. And I think there wasn't anything really paranormal in this, but what it does make me think of is like those stories that people talk about of like these people having these past life regressions or like experiencing those sort of things. So who knows, maybe this kid had, a past life regression, or he remembers his past life where he was some person that got murdered in the desert.
I know I've been seeing like, I've seen like past like TikToks and like just stories like on like creepy like YouTube videos or whatever, where they talked about kids remembering their past life, like they remember how they died. They remember like, oh, like they tell her like their mom, like, Mom, I had a family, like,
right,
like, oh, like you were part of my family, you were my daughter. Like they say like weird stuff to to their parents, and their parents are like, what the heck are you talking about? And the kid is just describing their whole entire past life like in complete detail.
Yeah, I think one of the most famous ones, at least that I've heard of, is like I think it takes place in India, where like this little girl can describe like this whole life that this person had up till like like she had kids and she married this person and then this happened and all this, and they didn't even live in the same city. They lived like in different cities across the country. And when they went out to go check to see if the girl was telling the truth, it turns out everything she said was true, and there would be no way for her to know because I guess this person had passed away before she was even born.
I think I've heard of that story actually, because I remember like one case where like they were able to like confirm everything she said. Yeah,
so like it's really weird, and who knows, this could potentially be something like that, or it could just be kids being weird. I mean, that's how they are, right?
That's true.
So I forgot to mention, sorry, that story was from the subreddit r/thetruthishhere.
I'll go ahead and move on to my first story. So this story comes from the subreddit r/x Reddit, and the question that's asked from user Digsy is, as it's nearly Halloween, sorry, how about we share some creepy stories? And I'm not going to talk about the main post here, but I'm going to talk about a commenter who is user Lithodora, and they tell a very interesting story, and I'll see what you think about it. When I was younger, we frequently visited my grandparents around holiday. Even then, we didn't live in the same town. My aunt lived 2 houses down from my grandparents. The lady in the house in between was creepy. She was a large woman, over 6 feet. She wore logging chains around her neck, a dress, and work boots. The only time I remember seeing her outside was either in her garden, in the back, or when she was washing the outside of her house, scrubbing the actual building. She did this often. During these times, she would yell at us kids and call us all kinds of things. She would tell us the devil would be coming for us. The adults told us to leave her alone and to avoid her. We would run the distance between my aunts and my grandparents because when you passed by, she was watching out the windows. It was creepy, and we never went alone. One Halloween, one of my cousins dared us to go trick-or-treat at her house. I remember how scared I was, but I didn't want to be a chicken, so I went. Plus, I was going with the group, so... One of us rang the doorbell, and there was a lot of banging noises in the house suddenly, like doors slamming. When she answered the door, she had a severed head in her hand, and we all went screaming.
What the hell?
The adults told us it was a Halloween prop, and we knew we shouldn't be bothered here and deserved to be scared. About a month later, my parents got a phone call that the lady had tried to kill my aunt while she was bringing in groceries and had my young cousins in her arm. The lady had one of them rope saws and had come up behind my aunt with it. She put it over her head and around her neck and proceeded to saw. My aunt naturally flipped out and started kicking the door. And my uncle came and beat the lady with a fire poker. The police investigation revealed that the woman had been digging tunnels under her home, which were coming up under my aunt's and my grandparents' and another neighbor's house. She had been bringing the dirt up and putting it in the raised beds of the gardens. She also had a shrine of some sort underground, which had a few severed heads around it. My aunt survived, by the way, but has a long scar across her neck.
What the hell?
Exactly. Oh, when I was reading the story, I was just like, what happened? Like, severed heads? Like, oh my, like,
yeah.
What was this lady gonna do? Like, what is wrong with her, I guess?
Okay, when you said, like, right off the bat, like, shortly after all this happened, that they ran into her and she had, like, a severed head in her hand, and she tried attacking the aunt, immediately I was like, that was not a fake prop. Like, the parents said it was
That's what
real.
I thought, too. But, oh my, that's scary. Like, imagine being a little kid and, like, just this super tall, like, lady that, like, your parents and, like, your grandparents always warned you, don't go to her house.
Right.
She just comes out and just carrying, like, the scary prop that your parents tell you. Like, I feel like I would believe it's like an actual head no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, especially, like, at that young age. And that story reminds me of just kind of, like, you know, your basic like Halloween stories or scary stories where it's just like that person, like that old person in the house, right? Or the corner house or something like that.
Yeah, like where there's just like a creepy person. Like,
and that was exactly like she was building a tunnel to, like, do what exactly? Like, you had mentioned something about, like, the flower beds.
Yeah, like the dirt that she had gotten from those tunnels, she had put them in the raised flower beds. So or like in the raised garden beds, I guess. And so each time they saw her in the garden, that's what she was doing, I guess.
But, like, it makes you just think, like, what the hell was she doing in the tunnels? Like, a tunnel to where?
And the shrine, like, where is she getting these severed heads, first of all? Like,
for sure, yeah, like, I mean, oh my gosh, like, that, it may not be paranormal, but still, like, that's
creepy
insane.
And, like, just crazy.
But see, like, it just goes to show you, right? Like, parents, when your kids tell you something weird, you better listen to them. You always like to write them off, like we said before. I know kids are a little bit dumb sometimes, but
like these kids are a little dumb for messing with a lady, especially when their parents tell them, don't go over there, and here they are. Yeah,
see, like, I know from experience, I've told my parents stuff before, right? Like, when I was younger, you know, you remember, like, I would see things or whatever, and they would just write it off like I was crazy or something, or, oh, that's why you need to stop watching those scary movies or scary things on, you know, the internet. Just kind of write it off and kind of like blame something else, when in reality I know what I saw. And yeah, like, I don't know, I think that kind of goes to show the parents, they probably felt dumb after that, right? After finding out exactly what happened.
I feel like they were kind of creeped out when they did hear it, and I feel like some of them, like, a part of them probably was just like, maybe it was, but they were being rational adults, you know, being like, no, it has to be a Halloween prop. Like, why would our neighbor have that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Maybe, like, they did think that, you know, sorry, I didn't mean to call the parents dumb, I guess, because now I'm thinking about it, they could be saying that just to protect the kids, kind of like, no, it wasn't real. In reality, they're thinking like, damn, maybe that was real. But nonetheless, that's a good story. But alright, I'll go ahead and tell my next story. And this is from the subreddit r/thetruthishhere by the user CacNibbler. And it is titled, Had a Possible Experience at Rolling Hills Asylum. This happened last Halloween. I spent a few hours at Rolling Hills Asylum with a friend of mine, and to be honest, at first I was really skeptical of the whole place due to the owners acting like the ghosts just come out and chat like Casper. Nonetheless, I had a weird experience that made me lean more towards believing something is possibly going on there. My friend was pushing me around in a wheelchair when I saw a black shadow person run across the hall, but bending in ways people shouldn't bend. So I got up and froze, and to my surprise, my friend just goes, "What? Someone just crossed the hall." And I said something along the lines of, "That wasn't human." And we proceeded to debate if it was a person or not, and we realized that we could easily just clear the hall room by room and see if anybody was on the floor with us. After searching the wing, we realized not only was there no one in the room, no one was even in the entire wing.
What the heck?
Yeah, so that one was weird. It kind of reminded me of when I did the haunted asylum and in one of our earlier episodes. Because they also reported seeing like shadow people or like that creature that they called like the beast or something like that.
Yeah,
or
I remember.
the creeper, I'm sorry, not the beast. The creeper, where he was known to like, or it, I guess you could say, was known to like crawl along the walls and on the ceiling and stuff.
That's just so scary. Like, we definitely need to do an episode on shadow people. I feel like there's so many stories about just crazy stuff people have seen.
Yeah, and it's weird because I guess, the last one I covered, for those of you that may not have listened, or if, you're new to the podcast, the last one I did was Waverly Hills Asylum. That was on the episode that talked about haunted hospitals. So go ahead and check that out. But they talk about people seeing shadow people, right? Either the people that go visit or the people that are on, like, doing the tour, like the tour guides themselves. So that's interesting to see that, like, this is another asylum or a haunted asylum that has shadow people reported there. And just the mere fact that, like, these kids, I mean, I'm assuming they were kids, right? You would only think, like, messing around in a wheelchair or whatever, were, like, the ones that just can encounter it. And it seems like it's probably like an abandoned place.
Possibly. I mean, the fact that no one else was there in that whole entire wing. So,
And I think, I don't know, it just, there's just something about it. Like, me, for one, I'd be scared to do this in general, but for them to do it on Halloween,
I feel like that adds another, like, spook factor for me, at least.
And then going on to say, like, I spent a few hours there, like what? I wouldn't.
What are you doing?
Exactly. I wouldn't even want to be there for 30 minutes, let alone an hour. But yeah, I mean, that story a little bit more like lighthearted, and nothing really bad happened to him, but nonetheless scary.
Definitely. For my next story, I have another story from that same post on r/axreddit by user Digsy with the "As it's nearly Halloween, how about we share some creepy stories?" And this comment, though, that replies to this post is from Bullet Daw, and this is their story. The house I lived in before this one was beyond haunted. Though we never physically saw anything, when we first moved in, we were redoing the floor in the kitchen and master bedroom. My husband at the time would leave for work, and I'd be left alone in this house with no furniture, no floors, and nothing to do. I can't explain it, but alone in the bedroom at night, I felt the most mind-numbing fear you could ever think of. I could not stay in that room. I bolted out of the house at 4 a.m. after he'd left and slept in my car with my dog until daylight. And that was just the first experience. A week or so later, the house was finished, and we moved all our furniture in, and I began sleeping in my real bedroom across the house. A friend and her husband moved in with us, and the boys went away for training for 2 weeks. They were U.S. Marines, leaving us girls to fend for ourselves. The first night, she comes running into my bedroom, asking to sleep with me because her bed was shaking. I laughed it off, thinking she was probably sleepwalking, and just made room for her. No more than 5 minutes later, my bed started shaking like an earthquake. We stayed completely frozen and waited for it to stop. The next night, the same thing happened. Then night after night, our beds would shake and we would be terrified. Her bedroom was the one I had slept in when we first moved in. The room I felt mind-numbing fear. She refused to sleep in there alone. She said she'd hear something like fingernails in the closet scratching from the ceiling all the way to the floor. Another night, she went to sleep with her closet door closed and her fan off, and she woke up an hour later to her door open and the fan on. Another night, she went in the bathroom and I was in my bedroom when both lights cut off. We figured, okay, old house, power outage. We made our way down the hallway and started flipping switches. Every other light in the house would work, except the 2 rooms we were in. I called my father, an electrician, asking for help. Everything was working perfectly, yet still, no lights. After 20 minutes of arguing with my father that we were not going back into that room, we finally walked back into my room when both lights magically came back on. We set up a video camera on one night around Halloween of last year, hoping to capture something. We positioned it on my kitchen table, pointing it down the hallway to my bedroom. The first video had shadows crossing the walls when no one was around, and the picture would randomly distort and become fuzzy, then become clear again. We fully recharged the camera and set it up to run for the next 4 hours. In the video, you can see my ex-husband and I walk down the hall, go into our bedroom, and when we turn off the light, the video stops. The battery was dead after 6 minutes of a video and a full recharge. Months later, we were having a bonfire with a bunch of my ex-husband's friends. The boys all came in the house to grab some food and beer. Clark was the first out the door and came screaming back into the house. Everyone just kind of stared at him like he was crazy and asked what happened. He swore up and down that he had seen 3 men in Civil War uniforms standing around the fire. Clark certainly wasn't drunk, but he was scared out of his mind. Activity slowed down after that, and just little things here and there would happen. Whatever it was got used to us and turned from scaring us to playing jokes on the new people who came over to spend the night. Their things would go missing, the couch or the bed they were sleeping on would shake, but my bed never did again. It almost became a joke around the house. We never did see anything though. And that's the story.
Okay, that is weird.
Yeah.
So, okay, did it say where they're located?
They didn't say exactly where they were located in any of the replies, I believe. But, I guess it's just this new house that they moved in and a bunch of stuff would happen.
Because I find that weird because, towards the end it mentioned that the person said they seen, Civil War soldiers. So that made me think, okay, where could they be located? But that is interesting. And the whole thing with, the lights and only in, a specific room, it's a clear case of, the spirit controlling, energy sources or electricity more specifically.
Mm-hmm. They did post some photos of things that they taken inside the house where weird stuff would happen or it would be foggy and stuff like that. And maybe we could post those if you guys are interested. I don't think they're too interesting. It's just kind of a couple of photos with some just something messing with their camera. And that's really the big update that they posted when someone asked about it. But yeah, it's just scary to picture. Imagine you're trying to go to sleep and then your bed just starts shaking. No. If it's not an earthquake, I think I'd be pooping my pants or something.
Yeah, that would creep me out for sure, because then like you said, first instinct would be earthquake, but after a while you kind of be like, wait a minute, nothing else is shaking, just the bed and me in it. So for sure that'd be a creepy experience there. But wow, that's interesting. A haunted, I guess it's one of, we haven't really had too many haunted house stories, which is interesting because that's technically or not technically, but that's usually what people think about when you think of the paranormal or scary stories. It's a haunted house. So I guess that's pretty cool. Okay, so for my next story, I have a story from the subreddit r/paranormal, and this is by the user accurate_case 9101, and it is titled, I used a Ouija board 2 years ago in October. So last night I had probably the strangest dream sequence I've ever had. I hardly ever dream, and when I do, I cannot recall them in the morning. Last night was different. In my dream, I was playing a Ouija board exactly like the one that I own. I was moving the planchette across the Ouija board, and by we, I don't know who. There wasn't anyone necessarily next to me, sort of looming in the shadows of the room. I look up to what was the second floor and see a shadow/silhouette of a woman moving left to right across the hall. I could not see the bottom half of her as it was hidden behind the half wall upstairs. She had something in her hand, but I couldn't recall what. As she got to the top of the stairs, I could hear screaming, "Put it down! Put it down! Put it down!" I was shaken awake by my girlfriend, who said I was screaming in my dream. I said it's okay, it was just a dream. I fell back to sleep and I didn't scream again. Now a little backstory. I purchased a Ouija board around Halloween 2 years ago as decoration, but ended up using it when a friend came over. My responses on the board were Z and 56, and nothing else. Several days later, I was falling asleep on the couch with my son on my left arm, who was already sleeping. I had a lamp with a black light in it for a soft light at night. I am terrified of the dark. I heard something fall and it sort of jolted me awake. I look on the wall and there it is. What I thought was a G.I. Joe action figure crawling across the wall towards me. As I was getting up without throwing my sleeping toddler off of me, it crawled up the wall and turned into a tarantula, then disappeared. The falling sound was a dark arts book that fell open onto the Ouija board box. The Ouija board is in a storage and I refuse to get it out, nor will my girlfriend allow it in the house. I have experienced a lot of bad luck in the recent years, more so than ever. Anyone want a Ouija board?
I'm okay. I don't need one.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know what it is with people wanting to have that. I'm all for all things paranormal, but that is just one thing I will never mess with, let alone purchase. To each their own, right? But I just think there's just so many stories, movies, whatever the case is, that surround Ouija boards, which is part of the reason why I don't want it. The other reason is just because, I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. I wouldn't know how to use it. I have not done any research about it, and I just don't see the need for it. I understand some people do because they want to contact their loved ones, but it always seems like there's something sinister behind it.
The first movie I think of personally when it comes to consequences from using on a Ouija board is like Veronica, like the movie on Netflix.
Oh, right. That's a great movie. If you guys haven't seen
that
it.
one is crazy. It's in Spanish, right?
Yeah, it's in Spanish. It's based on a true story. It's set in Spain, so we're gonna have to. I know we talked about it before. That we have to cover that story on the podcast. But if you guys have not, it's a great movie, especially Halloween time. Perfect for you guys to watch.
That first part of the story, honestly, like that's scary. The fact that like you're just seeing like this random person in like the house just holding something or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't. I think they said it was their dream. They said they don't really dream often. They don't really remember their dream, and that's what they had seen. And they end up, being woken up by their girlfriend because they said they were screaming. Which, in the dream, they say that they hear somebody screaming, "Put it down! Put it down! Put it down!" So, I mean, for all we know, like that was him screaming, but in the dream, it was just somebody else, and like he was, I guess, subconsciously hearing himself in his dream. Which I think that's weird for somebody who doesn't really dream, I guess, or doesn't really remember their dreams. Obviously, that's something memorable that stuck with them for a reason.
I just know that you'll never catch me messing with an Ouija board.
Yeah,
that's scary.
Not even as I think that's probably the worst part is even as a joke, because they said, they bought it as a decoration, but then one day they end up using it with a friend. Like, I feel like it's always those sort of cases too, when like you least expect it, like you think, it's gonna be fun and joking around, and that's kind of like the premise of the movie that we mentioned, where it's like these girls, they were kind of like, oh yeah, let's play with it. Like they were, some of them had a reason. I know the main protagonist of the movie, Veronica, which it's like named after her. She was using it for a valid reason, but it just seemed like it was just kind of like a schoolgirl thing where it's just like, oh, we're messing around, like let's just do it for fun.
Let's test this out.
Yeah, and I feel like it tends to happen when you least suspect it, and I think that's like a perfect example. So, for those of you out there, if you do have a Ouija board or whatever, first, I hope you did your research on it, and if you are going to use it, just please be careful. Be sure to say goodbye, close it out. I know that's always a thing, like what people like ask in like the horror movies, like, oh, did you say goodbye? Did you close it out correctly? And they're nope. And there you go. That's your first mistake.
Exactly. So for my next one, it comes from the subreddit r/ghost stories, and it's from the user Garlic Bread Fairy. And this title is kind of funny, but it's a pretty good story. I like it. So the title of the story is The Toilet Paper Ghost. Always loved horror and ghost stories, but have had healthy doses of skepticism when it comes to real life supernatural encounters. That was until the incident occurred in 2015. I was visiting a friend in Portland for the weekend. Halloween weekend. As cliche as that sounds, the house my friend lived in with several other roommates was old. Everything creaked and groaned, especially at night. I wish I knew how old it was, but I do not. On my initial tour of the house, I noticed it had a laundry chute from the upstairs bathroom leading to the basement cellar, where there were laundry machines and a bunch of old squeaky furniture from past residents, moldered and sat, getting covered in dust and spiderwebs. They never touched the old stuff, but it was there. I was in my mid-20s then and was getting ready to go out with my buddy to a basketball game. Trailblazers versus Suns, then hit the bars. While I was putting on my Halloween makeup in the bathroom mirror, I felt this odd sensation. This stillness. Then in the pit of my stomach, I felt anxious. Butterflies. The kind of thing you feel when you're playing hide and seek and you can see the seeker from where you're hiding, and they are moments away from finding you. I was kind of frozen in a trance for a moment when all of a sudden, a full roll of toilet paper tipped out from the rest of the pack, went onto the side of the floor, and began to unravel. With absolutely no draft in the bathroom, no fans, no gust of wind. This brand new roll of toilet paper just began to move and unravel by itself. And it was unraveling down to the laundry chute. I stood there, eyeliner in hand, poised against my eyelid, watching this teepee unravel through the mirror in which I was doing my makeup. When I finally made it to the end of the roll, the cardboard inner roll just spun around in a circle for what felt like forever, then stopped. I kept standing there for a moment, unsure what just had happened. Suddenly my friend knocks on the bathroom door, which startled me. Hey, is everything okay in there? I came out looking super pale and he's like, what's wrong? I told him what happened and he looked at me funny. He told me he was just in the basement and saw a ream of toilet paper coming streaming down and fold over itself in a perfect zigzag. He led me downstairs and sure enough, I see the unraveled roll of teepee neatly folded over itself, with no one side being any longer than the other. He kept telling me, seriously, you're telling me you didn't do that? And he finally believed me after some convincing. He had thought I was doing it and came to check up on me thinking I was playing around with toilet paper for some reason. But neither of us had been doing anything to provoke this incident. He was digging through his laundry, looking for his son's shirt. I understand completely if having read this, you think this is the stupidest incident you've ever heard of. It happened to me and I know how stupid it is, but to me and my friend, it is beyond crazy. Nowadays, my friend and I just laugh about it because, why? What kind of funny little haunting was that? Maybe some presents wanted to play a classic Halloween night prank on us and TP the living, LOL. But to this day, I feel like some presents was playing around with the toilet paper. My friend didn't own the house and had only lived there a few months, and I never got a chance to ask the main owner if other strange things had been there. But I didn't care what anyone tells me. I count this as a hilarious paranormal experience, with what my friend and I now call the toilet paper ghost.
Okay, that one is pretty... It's pretty funny, I guess. Like they say, like they kind of chalk it up to like, okay, it's just a dumb little story, but I would understand in the moment. You kind of be like, what the hell? You're like, what is going on? And I feel like, I mean, I've had instances like that where it doesn't necessarily kind of scare me, where I'm like, oh my god, I need to get out of here. Where it's just kind of like unexplained, like what was that? So I could definitely like relate to that story. And I think that's perfect for like when we ask, when we ask for like stories, like these sort of stories are, what we're looking for, like anything like that, literally anything paranormal, right? It doesn't have to be the scariest thing ever, because as long as you felt some way about it, that's all that really matters. Because, I mean, how would you be able to explain that sort of thing,
Exactly. Like the person like explained, one of the other friends was like just digging through their laundry. It's not like they were in the restroom getting the toilet paper when that person was in there doing like their makeup. Like they were both busy doing something else, and that just decided to happen to them, I guess.
If I were to experience anything, I would hope it'd be something along the lines of that. I don't want to have these very intense paranormal experiences, because I feel like those are never fun, especially for the people that experience it. It's nice to hear about it, but at the end of the day, it affects people. And I think this is very nice to see that like this person kind of just chalked it up to like, okay, this little playful spirit, and it's what it seems like.
Yeah, like this is definitely like, if I were to have an experience, I'd want an experience like this, not like my bed shaking like the last one I told.
These different stories are weird, like it's scary, and I think like my next story is a perfect example of something that I would not want happening to me, and I don't think anybody would. This next one is from r/paranormal, and it is by the user Ethereal Skylark, and it is titled Strange Creature Keeps Visiting Apartment. The last 2 days have gotten crazy. For the past 2 years, there have been tapping sounds coming from my bedroom window. It started one Halloween night. I know this sounds like a bad movie. And about a few times a month, sometimes more often, something taps on my window. There's nothing around to hit the window, and it sounds exactly like a finger tapping the glass. Me and my siblings are used to it. A few days ago, my brother started complaining that something was communicating to him from outside the den's window. Keep in mind, we live in an apartment complex, so we always have the blind closed. He says that whatever it was just kept saying hello, in a very robotic, high-pitched voice. The rest of our family just shrugged it off. The day after, we go outside and there's small tracks leading up to all of our windows. I don't know what animal could have made those tracks, because I think it's bipedal. Later that day, I was in my bedroom laying next to my window, blinds closed, and I jump out of my skin. Someone's loudly banging against the glass, but I ignore it. I just assume it's one of my siblings sneaking up on me. I then find out that they were both together at that moment in the house while it happened. They hadn't been out for hours. The next night, my brother complained about the voice outside his window again, and we told him to ignore it. If it's something supernatural, we don't want to mess with it. Yesterday, while we were all preparing for dinner, my entire family and I heard the creature screaming outside. I was too shocked to move to grab my phone and record. It kept yelling, "Hello? Come out!" Exactly how my brother had described it. It was so loud we heard it clearly. It was so loud that we heard it from the kitchen and the dining room. We didn't want to look outside. This morning, more snow had fallen, but fresh prints were there. I was able to take pictures before they melted. I don't know what to make of any of this, but it's impossible for this to be a prank because of the lack of human prints in the snow. I'm going to keep my phone on me tonight so that I can record the creature talking if it comes by again, and I'm pretty sure it will. I live in Northeast Ohio. If anyone has any information on what this is or has a similar experience, please let me know.
Oh my god, like I'm always scared that when I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm gonna see something or something's gonna be at my window, and that's like my worst nightmare.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of has a fear of like something like that. Where I know when I was younger, I used to always think that I would see somebody like their face pressed up against the window, and like if I were to go open the blinds or something like that. So that's always been a fear of mine, just dreading that actually happening. And for them, it's kind of like mocking them, and it's weird because they say they live in Ohio, right? And so like they have the snow, and that they see these tracks, and they say it's bipedal, so it can't really be like an animal, like what sort of animal would be doing that? And for them to be like kind of talking, so obviously they know like it's what they assume is probably a person or something that has like human characteristics, because they say that there's no other tracks, like it's just those same tracks that are right there by the window, nothing leading away or leading to it. So that's weird.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of like anything that can be like any legend, any folklore, or just entity that would do that, but like I can't think of anything.
No, I don't know either.
Like, that's weird. Did they have any updates, like if they caught it on video, on audio or anything?
No, I mean, I didn't check. I'm looking at the comments like right now as we speak, and I know you said like, oh, was there any sort of like cryptid or anything like that? And somebody in the comments is like suggesting like Wendigo, Skinwalker, and they say like, oh, like they hope not. And this person starts to say like, oh, it sounds exactly what you described. In a sense, I guess, where it kind of tries to lure you out to do this, but like, not really. I think this person's just kind of reaching, and I feel like that's I don't know. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I think that's probably like the side effects of just, indulging yourself into like these like paranormal things or these cryptids without really knowing the history behind them or like the background. So I don't think so either. I mean, they're living in Ohio, I don't think this is like a big, native like folklore that's central to Ohio. I feel like this is probably like in other parts of the U.S., but they're trying to offer these different explanations, and these people just don't know. Like they really don't know. And no, I'm looking through here, and I don't see any sort of updates or like I guess proof that they experience this again. So we have no idea. I mean, they said that's been happening. They're sure that it is. So it just seems like it's something that's very frequent.
That's I just keep picturing, like, imagining someone, because right now at my, like, in my dorm, I'm on the first floor, and I'm always scared that I'm gonna wake up in the middle of the night and just be like looking at my window and seeing someone kind of just there, and scared. Like I feel like I'm scared I'm just gonna hear someone trying to talk to like me and my roommate or something. Like, that's scary to me.
See, I think, like, yeah, that is scary. I think the best part about the story, though, or at least for this person, I guess something to give them some sort of peace of mind, is the fact that they're not alone. They have their family, and like with you too, you have your roommates and stuff. So that's a good thing, because think about it. What if you actually lived alone or this and that, and this thing, right? We don't know if it's a person or not, but this thing is over here trying to get you to come outside or trying to communicate with you. Like, we don't know what the heck's going on. And for some reason, whatever it may be, the window is like stopping it, or like the house itself is stopping it from coming inside. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it can't come inside and it wants them to go outside. That's why it's telling them like, hello, come here or come out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like it seems like it's getting more bold, because at first it was just kind of talking to the brother, just telling him like, hello, hello, hello. And like nobody believed him until everybody heard it. And it was saying, come out.
Towards the end, like they were saying, it was getting louder. They could hear it from the living room, or I think they said kitchen or something, like the dining room. Like, it's getting very bolder, as like they aren't listening to it. They aren't going outside. They're kind of just ignoring it at this point.
Yeah, and so I guess that's interesting, because we always think about it. And I mean, a lot of people will say it too, right? Where like in the past, where you told your stories, your experiences, where we kind of have that joke. We're like, oh, if I don't see it or I don't pay attention to it, then it's not there, right? Or it'll leave me alone. Whereas here, it's kind of doing the opposite. It's getting angrier and angrier as they ignore it more and more.
I don't know why. I just keep picturing like this humanoid thing. And I'm just like, that's like, I don't know. I'm trying to just imagine like what could be there.
Yeah, I have no clue.
This is my second to last story, and it comes from the subreddit r/ghost stories from the user riceball123. It's titled Halloween Bumblebee. This happened 2 years ago at a Halloween party I hosted in my college apartment. Every time I tell someone the story, their reaction would either be in disbelief or would just straight up laugh. My party was to start at 7 p.m., and some of my friends sent me a message saying that they were on their way. They were just pre-gaming at another friend's house. A couple minutes have passed. Me and my sister and my 2 other friends were getting ready upstairs when we heard the front door unlock, and it sounded like someone was entering my house. I silently took a peek from the 3rd floor looking down the 1st. I live on the 3rd floor. And my friend and I saw what looked like our other friend in a bumblebee costume walking down from the 2nd floor to the 1st. I yelled out his name and told him to come upstairs and chill with us, but he ignored us. Now, me being excited and all, ran all the way down to the 1st floor to catch up with him and ask him to come up. Well, when I went downstairs, no one was there, and the door was locked, and it didn't seem like anyone entered. I also felt extremely cold, even though I had my windows closed and the heater on, as if there was a presence there. Before coming to uni, I've lived in a haunted home in the Philippines for years, so I know what it's like, and when there's a presence or entity around. The hairs on the back of my neck raised when I called my friends and asked if they stopped or whatever, and they said that they haven't even left and we're still pre-gaming. To top it off, nobody else in my friend group has a copy of my keys, so it was beyond impossible for them to even enter. I thought I was the only one imagining things, but my friend pulled me over and asked me if I saw what he saw too.
Okay, that is crazy. That story reminds me of the one from our tia Julie, where like she was upstairs and she had thought she heard somebody come in, right? Where like all her friends were out and she was the only one that stayed. Very reminiscent of that, besides the fact that like there was literally no, I guess, indication that somebody was really there when she went down there. Whereas like in our tia Julie's story, she said that she heard the lock being taken off, the door slam, all these like distinct noises you would hear when somebody actually walked in.
I feel like this one's, it's like similar, but like also different, since like he actually saw the person in like a bumblebee costume. Like that's why that's why they titled it the Halloween Bumblebee, because they saw it was like this person standing there in a bumblebee costume enter. Like that's scary to see someone enter like your home basically, and you go downstairs and you're thinking it's someone you know.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes it like creepier because of the fact that they actually seen somebody. And I'd be interested like to see, or not to see, but like interested to know, which I doubt it because I'm pretty sure they would have like mentioned it, but did anybody else see this bumblebee person? I know their friend did, but like throughout the party, was there somebody there in a bumblebee costume?
They didn't mention any of that. The only thing they like said like was at the end, like their friend asked like, did you see that too? Like, did you see that person?
Let's just say like, okay, it is a spirit. What if the spirit was just ready to party, you know? Like that's what it was. Like they knew a party was coming and they're like, oh shoot, I'm a little early. So they kind of they went off like hid.
Maybe like.
So like, yeah. And I mean, clear indications of a spirit for one, right? So I mean, you hear all these noises and there's nothing there, but then also the temperature drop. That in of itself is like kind of like a clear distinction that there is something unusual. Because they said that it was still pretty warm, but for some reason it was like hot, or not hot, I'm sorry, but cold down there, right?
Mm-hmm. Like they said that they had the heater on, they had all the windows closed, but for some reason it felt cold in like the 1st floor for some reason.
Oh yeah, so like there you go, like that change, especially with the heater on, I think that makes it like more credible because you have something that's physically or actively trying to like bring the temperature up where it actually goes down in a certain area after you had that incident occur.
And they also like they speak about how in the Philippines when before they came to uni, like they had experiences where they felt that exact same way, and it was in their own home, so they're very familiar with like just the feeling that something is there that they can't see, or like an entity is there.
Yeah, this definitely seems like somebody that's I guess seasoned in the paranormal world. So that's a very interesting story. I guess it's more like lighthearted on the same effect, but still to think that like, I don't know, in that split second, you're like, okay, is this somebody like either a friend, you know, an entity, or like, you know, even scarier, you know, like more real world horror is like, you know, intruder or something, right? Trying to, I guess, blend in with like the crowd, I guess you could say, even though there really wasn't anybody there. At least to a lot of speculation, but I think it is paranormal. Okay, so I think now I'm going to go ahead and do my second to last story. And this is from the subreddit r/ghost stories, and it is from the user Claudia Insights. And it is titled, My First Experience with a Ghost Possession in a Haunted Hotel in New Orleans. My story takes place in 2018. Picture it, New Orleans during Halloween or Creux de Bois season. I hope I said that right. I honestly don't know, but I apologize if I butchered that. My parents and I were there to celebrate a birthday, which was my father's, and attend a healthcare conference to present research. And in quotation marks, they put me, so they were there for heard present some research. We decided to stay at Hotel Monteleone, located in the French Quarter, because that is where my conference was taking place. Little did I know it's also known for being haunted. As a psychic medium, I was fully prepared to have many paranormal experiences, but I was not prepared for what happened to both my parents soon after we arrived. On the first night of our arrival, my parents had to stay in my room because their room was double booked. That night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to find my father sitting up in his bed across from mine. There was a thin, androgynous, 8-foot-tall being touching his leg. I watched for a few minutes, my dad laid back down, and the benevolent being disappeared. The next day, I asked my dad about it, and he said he was visited by an alien being who told him he was healing his sciatica pain. Indeed, his pain disappeared for months and months. 4 days later, my parents are now staying in their room. On the last morning of our stay, my father rings me to please come into their room. I get there and see that they are both anxious and bewildered. My father then proceeds to tell me that he knows my mother was possessed by a spirit the night before, who kept insisting that she jump out the window in her room. My dad stated that around 3 a.m. the night before, my mother woke up to tell him to hold her hand and to not let her go. My father thought my mother was having a stroke because her face looked faded somehow. She was there, but not, he said. His intuition told him to keep guard. My mother recounted that she felt when a young woman entered her body but pushed past her to ask my father to hold her hands until the morning came. She said the woman kept asking her to go through the window and jump. My mother said all she could do was pray for protection. She said she focused on my dad and asked the spirit to leave her. We left New Orleans a little shaken up, but okay. We since got back home. I reached out to the hotel and spoke to the manager about the incident, and he informed me that he had worked there for 5 years and that I was the third person he spoke with who had this experience. He validated that there was a story that a young woman had jumped to her death from that room after being jilted by a lover. I sure do wish they had disclosed that information prior to me booking that room. Now I know better. I ask before I book. So what are your thoughts on that?
That story is immediately like, what the hell? Like, that spirit, like, my first idea is like that spirit of like the lady who like jumped from that hotel room is likely like upset that this couple, like their parent, the user's parents are there happy or whatever. So maybe they just wanted to like, they felt like not vengeful, but they maybe a little upset. You know?
Definitely. No, I think it would be like all right to say it is a vengeful spirit because that's how it seems. Like, I guess I never made that connection. Like, I read the story, I just too many like weird occurrences, and I didn't really focus on that one. But I think you make a valid point, right? So obviously this person was like cheated on or something, and they decided to take their life because of it. So it seems like, yeah, like they were trying to like break up, this happy married couple, which was these users' parents, and I guess put an end to it, right? So it's kind of like weird and like scary to think. And thank God nothing happened to her, right? So like the mom's okay, the dad held her hand the entire time, didn't let it happen, and I think it's cool that they were able to get out of there. And I wouldn't say cool, but I think it's relieving, and all the while, like, it is very interesting because this person, they say that they are a psychic medium, and again, this user is Claudia Insights. And she claims that she's a psychic medium, right? So I don't know. It leads you to think like, is it the fact that she is so in tune with this like other side that these sort of things like were attracted to them? Because the first instance happened in her room where the parents stayed with them because of like the booking issue, and so right off the bat, something happened to the dad, and she had seen what happened to the dad. Right? He says it was an alien being, and I think that's so weird because most of the times when we think of these things, we think like ghosts or whatever, but we never really hear like aliens kind of doing anything like that. Like that's kind of like a whole separate genre of like supernatural stuff, right? Or occurrences.
Yeah. That when that first occurrence happened, like immediately I was just like, what? Like it just sounded so like strange just to hear like that this happened to them when they were in their room. Like the user just woke up and saw this like what I think they said like androgynous like entity. Like that's what they kind of like addressed it as. Like I feel like I would be scared because like there's this tall like random thing in my in my room,
for sure.
And just touching like my dad's leg, like. But I do find it like really nice that like I guess it helped with his like sciatica pain. Like that's really cool, honestly. Like that's like I feel like that's scary, but also like okay, like that entity was helping,
right?
Like it wasn't a bad or like malevolent one or anything like that. And that kind of like what you were saying, like were these like paranormal experiences and like supernatural experiences like drawn to them, because since this user claims to like that they have psychic abilities, you know, like they're like connected, you know, with like the paranormal and everything like that. And like I feel like people that are connected in that way, like spiritually and everything like that, I definitely think like entities and like ghosts are drawn to them because these people are going to clearly see them. They're going to clearly like understand them more than most people, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, right? And again, like it's just weird. I guess there's some sort of like juxtaposition to it, I guess, because it could be on one hand that she is so I wouldn't say like drawn to him, but like I guess they're drawn to her in a sense. And I think that's maybe where that line is drawn right there, right? Where her room had this being come, you know, appear to her and her parents and heal her dad, right? Whereas when the parents finally got their room that they were supposed to be having, this negative, malevolent, like vengeful spirit was trying to get in the mom and get her to jump out the window. So who knows? Maybe like it makes you speculate, I guess, or wonder, would that same thing have happened if they would have had like flip-flop rooms? Like if the user had stayed in her parents' room, would this entity still have tried to get into her? Or would this, you know, androgynous being try to go there? Or would she not experience any of this in the first place?
Yeah, like I feel like that's a pretty like good thing to like wonder and just think about, like, would this have changed due to like the user's experience and like understanding of all this stuff? Like would would the entity that was in her parents' like original room try and go after her, basically? Or like would she just have another experience different from what she had with the like entity in her room?
Yeah, it could have like definitely felt her like, I guess, powers in a sense, right? Like her strengths in that in that realm, where like they might be like, you know what, I'm not gonna mess with her, I'm gonna mess with her mom, because maybe, you know, I mean, we don't know about this user's parents. Maybe the mom doesn't have anything, or maybe she's the only one in the family that has these abilities. So maybe it was trying to feed off of somebody that they felt was like, I guess, weaker in a sense.
I think their advice at the end, or like what they say at the end, is pretty good advice, where they're like, oh, next time I know, I'm gonna ask about like the hotel room they booked. I think that's really smart, especially since like if you're staying at a place that, I feel like New Orleans has a lot of older buildings, like very historic buildings and anything like that. Like you're definitely gonna want to know what has happened in those rooms.
Yeah, like I was gonna say something along those lines of that as well, especially since they stayed in the French Quarter, which is, you know, probably one of the oldest like regions in New Orleans, and it's known to have such like strong like presence of like supernatural beings and just spirits in general, right? Because so much happened there, and it's just like a hotbed of like all these paranormal entities. And I think, again, that's very valid advice, but especially if you know you're going into something that is so like powerful in that realm and like it's known for these sort of things, I think, yeah, you should probably just, you know, better be safe than sorry, because the person that they ended up calling, like the hotel, I don't remember, like probably like the hotel manager, right? They're like, yeah, you're not the first person that told us about that. So that's, you know, that's like a red flag there. You know, if you call and you tell them something and they'd say, oh yeah, we've heard that before, it's like, okay, like what? So yeah, I mean,
I would be mad. I'm like, why didn't you?
exactly. Like, hey, like a heads up, when you're checking in. Hey, by the way, we've been known to get like alien beings in the room, and also there's like a lady that tells you to jump out the window. So yeah, have a nice day. Like,
You should be
like
here.
what? Like I would check out and go try to find another hotel. Like that is weird. But nonetheless, I think this story was very interesting, and all the while like it happened around this Halloween time too. So I think that adds like another factor to it. Maybe I guess people say like during this time these entities have like stronger powers. I guess they're stronger in a sense, they're more energized, so maybe they were, I guess, out and about and they were trying to do more with these newfound like abilities that they had.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable to like think of and stuff, because I feel like around Halloween time a lot of people say like, oh, more stuff happens, more demonic stuff happens, or whatever, more entities are attacked. And my next story, I feel like, is one of these occurrences. So this next one comes from r/ghost stories from the user Fernandad Felicity, and it's titled, "There was something demonic in my closet." In honor of Halloween, I thought I'd finally type up the story from Halloween 2015 and share it here. Halloween that year was on a Saturday night. Last minute, I decided to attend a friend's board game theme party. I drew in a Ouija board on an old white t-shirt with a Sharpie. It turned out great, and I had a nice time at the party. The next Sunday, November 1st, I had a typical hungover Sunday. I left the costume on the floor in a pile of laundry that I was too lazy to pick up. And I'm in my bed that night with my dog, and her eyes start swelling up out of nowhere. Like it was huge, and she couldn't see. Her whole face was swelling. I panic and rush out to take her to the emergency vet. I go to get her out of the car at the vet, except when I do, all the swelling is gone and she's completely fine. Being young and poorer at the time, I decided to skip the emergency vet and went back home since my dog seemed completely normal. We go back in bed, and a couple of minutes later, my dog's face starts doing the same thing, just swelling up out of nowhere. I rushed back to the emergency vet, and this time, even though the swelling disappeared again, I decided to admit her to the vet to get her checked out. They run tests and get fluids and check for insect bites, but nothing showed up. She was completely fine. We go back home, it's late, I pass out, and so does my dog, with no more face swelling. Cut to 3:30 a.m. I wake up and my dog is sitting at the edge of my bed staring at the wall where my closet is, and doing a low growl. I look at the direction of the closet, and the door is open, and inside the closet I see this dark, black/gray misty thing fiercely clawing at my clothes on the hanger.
Oh, hell no.
And making them swing back and forth. I know. Terrified I couldn't find my voice to scream, so I just lifted my hands in the air and slammed them down to the comforter to scare it away. It turned and looked at me. It didn't really have a face though, just like a hooded black hole, and then it vanished through the back wall of the closet. I didn't know how to process this. I thought I was just maybe seeing shit, so I just sat motionless, wrapped as tightly as possible in my comforter, until it was lights out. I burned the Ouija board costume the next day and smudged with some sage just to be safe. The apartment was in a building built in the early 1900s, and I saw lots of ghosts after that. Every 6 months or so I would wake up, always between 3 or 4 in the morning, and see a figure in my room. All the other ones I saw were more neutral in terms of their energy. They were white and misty and had faces, and weren't dark and faceless like the first one. I would ask them, please leave me alone, and they would disappear. Pretty harmless. I still don't quite know if it was real or just my mind playing tricks on me late at night. The one part that makes me think it was real was my dog's face swelling. I FaceTimed my mom the night, and she saw my dog's face and told me to go to the vet, so I didn't imagine that. But was that the demon attacking my dog, or just a coincidence? I'm a rational person, but I swear, the Ouija costume opened up some sort of portal in my bedroom. But yeah, that was my story, and one thing I did want to mention is that the poster, they posted a picture of the shirt that they created for this Halloween party they went to. I noticed that we both had a story where someone created their own Ouija board, kind of. This one was on a shirt and the other one was more I can't exactly remember, but guys, don't mess with the Ouija boards. It's just not a smart idea.
Yeah, I mean, these makeshift Ouija boards, they're not, even though it might not be the real thing, right? You might not think it will work the same way. I mean, this is a perfect example that it still works, whether it's a true, made out of wood or whatever the heck it is, The other one still, you buy it at a store. It doesn't, even though you might think that's not authentic, it obviously holds some sort of power. And this is a clear example, right? Even though this is a piece of fabric, this is like, a shirt. Exactly. So like, it doesn't sound like something that you normally would associate with like demons or these different entities. It could be turned into it could be turned into that sort of thing, because these sort of things kind of like conduct this sort of paranormal energy. And it's like that thing, you kind of attract whatever you put out, I guess. I know in the last episode I talked about how I didn't like that sort of saying, but I guess in a sense it's kind of true.
Yeah, like kind of like what the poster said. They believe they created like a portal, they think, kind of like with this, because they did kind of just leave it there, but so they kind of believe like maybe like that's created like a portal in their closet or whatever. And maybe like that's a possibility, like since they didn't really like do anything with it other than just throw it in their closet, and then all of a sudden these entities are just showing up. Like I feel like I would believe that too. I was wondering what your thoughts and like opinions were about like the thing with her dog though. Like to me that was very weird, and I feel like I believe it has to deal with something with like at least that first entity she saw that night, because like it was just so different compared to the other one she like later saw after this incident. And it was just so weird that like the dog was just like perfectly normal, even though like its face was swelling up so badly. Like that's just weird.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what it is, but I think it is a very strange coincidence at the fact that like it coincided with these things happening, and with like her creating the Ouija board shirt and all that sort of thing. And I don't know, honestly. Like I said, it's a coincidence. I can't really just say, oh, like, yes, this is the reason why. But it's kind of hard to not, like, it's kind of hard for the mind not to go there, given all this sort of stuff that started happening because of this. And I know you mentioned the fact that, like, they were, this person even, like, told their parents about it, which is how, like, they, I guess, were able to kind of, like, validate it themselves, where it's like, okay, I'm not making this up. This is something that really happened to the dog, even though the dog came out fine and like there was nothing wrong with them. This is something that happened. Obviously, it scared them, and I don't know. I really don't know. It's kind of like scary to think that like these entities can do this to you, because we don't really hear too much stories where like a spirit or like a ghost can do something to you like this physically, whether to you or like to an animal. So I guess it's a new fear that just got unlocked.
Definitely tell us what you guys think in our comments. Like we're definitely going to post the picture of the shirt that the poster posted in their comments on our Instagram at calaveriapod, and tell us what you guys think. Do you think this was connected to the shirt, or was it just like a weird coincidence with her dog?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good story to end on, Samantha. But before we finally close out this episode, I have my final story, and this is from the Let's Read Official subreddit, and it is by the user DJ_buffoon, and it is titled Dancer in the Dark. So they begin by saying this is a true story. This happened about 13 years ago, when I was a sophomore in college attending a liberal arts school in Suffolk County, New York. Within the first month or two of freshman year, I had found myself in a very tight-knit group of fellow theater geeks, 6 guys, myself included, and 1 girl. And they all loved horror movies and ghost stories. I have found my crew. Freshman year was tough, but we all held each other up and made the whole experience more enjoyable for one another. At the beginning of sophomore year, we decided that in October, as the Halloween season was ramping up, we would find a creepy wooded spot in a nearby town some night and scare the crap out of ourselves. And that's precisely what happened. We did some research and found that there was a particularly isolated area about 30 minutes away, infamous for paranormal sightings. Perfect. The 7 of us split up into 2 different cars and headed out into the night. Allow me to set the scene. You turn off to a busy road, flooded with strip malls and restaurants and whatnot, and you are almost immediately greeted by complete darkness. Again, this area was very heavily wooded. It was essentially a large web of winding roads surrounded by trees, very few streetlights, and very few houses. Without a GPS or a good sense of direction, one could easily get lost in there. We all made sure we had fully charged phones and flashlights just in case, but the goal was to keep driving until we collectively decided to pull over and go exploring. So per the directions, we made a left off of the main road, driving for 30 minutes or so into this dark network, picking directions at random, just getting intentionally lost. Our cars made a turn, and to our surprise, there was a huge log in front of us, turned on its side. We had reached a dead end of some kind, with nothing but trees beyond it. We all go out to see what exactly this was, and we stepped over the log and noticed 2 narrow trails leading into different directions. This seemed like as good as a time to grab our flashlights and to do some amateur ghost hunting. We flipped a coin and set off on the trail to the right. The trail was so narrow that we had to walk single file to avoid getting whacked by branches. For whatever reason, I ended up in the back. I'm usually pretty rational and level-headed, but I have to say, the further we went in, the more I was overcome with an uneasy feeling. I kept hearing sounds deep in the woods, unable to shake the feeling we were being watched. But I seemed to be the only one who heard these things, so I shrugged it off as my imagination. And in any case, the whole point of us being there was to get scared, not to mention the fact that we were 7 able-bodied college students. What would we come across that could take us down? We headed down this trail for about 20 minutes, and just when I thought it would never end, we came to a massive clearing, and I mean massive. It was a large open field of unkept grass, comparable in scope to a golf course, but not nearly as well manicured. Trees surrounded the entire field, which was so large we could not see the end of it where we were standing. I was thrilled to get out of that narrow trail, but I don't think any of us were expecting to find an area so vast. One of us looked to the right and said, "Hey, check that out." We all turned and there was an old, dilapidated house several hundred yards away. The house was completely dark, with no cars or signs of anyone actually living there. We walked over and shined our flashlights at it, and sure enough, the windows and doors were all boarded up. I managed to peer between the boards on one of the windows, and what I could see was an old white couch covered in plastic, but an otherwise empty room. Whoever used to live here was long gone. Because there was no way in, and because we all felt sufficiently creeped out by the house anyway, we decided to walk closer to the trail we had come from, have a seat in the field, and figure out where to go next. We walked towards the narrow trail, but before we could sit, my friend Mark stopped what he was doing. His expression dropped, and he pointed. We all turned and, on a very far side of the field, directly across from where we had come in, we could see someone, tall, lanky, and pale, dancing among the trees. And by dancing, I mean it was skipping around, grabbing a tree, swinging around it, and then doing the same to another tree, basically a do-si-do. The moon was so bright and the woods so dark, it actually took a second for us to really understand what we were looking at. Jay, the 6'4" skeptic of the group, wasn't seeing it. I leaned into him, pointing in that direction and said, "Jay, look where I'm pointing. Don't you see that?" He squinted a bit, and the second that he saw it, he gasped with everything he had, clutched my arm, and whispered, "What the fuck is that?" What happened next sent shockwaves through all of us. Whoever this was, they stopped dancing, looked in our direction, and started charging straight at us. Without even thinking, we freaked and we ran back to the trail. Yet again, Jay was the only one who didn't see what was happening. He shouted after us, "Guys, what is it? Where are you going?" After about 15 seconds of running like hell, I heard Jay scream, "Holy shit!" I looked back and saw his flashlight following the rest of us into the trail. While the walk into the woods took about 20 minutes, we made it back to our 2 cars, hopped in, and we were pulling away in closer to 5. Once we were a safe distance away, we pulled over, got out, and checked in with each other about what had just happened. My heart was pounding, and I know everyone else was feeling the same way. Nearly 15 years later, we are still friends, living in different states, yet keeping in touch through marriages, divorces, children, etc. But occasionally, out of the blue, one of us will send a group text to the others with something to the effect of, "The woods. That really happened, right?" It most certainly did. That experience is always in the back of my mind, and I'm pretty sure it always will be. Here's the thing that still resonates with me about that night. Whoever that was, they were dancing maniacally in the woods at 1 in the morning, and they ran directly for a group of young adults, not at all fazed by the fact that they were severely outnumbered. Did he know we were there from the second we parked? Was he the sound that I had kept hearing while we walked? Whatever the case may be, when he came for us that night, you can be sure none of us wanted to stick around and see what he was truly capable of. And that's the story.
That is just scary. Like, what?
I mean, okay, that story, that's the reason why, I wanted to end it off with this one, because when I found it, I just knew, like, okay, this is going to be, a banger story, like big bang at the end of it, end of the episode, right? And it really was. I think it, lived up to my expectations, because for one, it just seems like, a perfect, like, kind of horror story, like, scene right there, right? Like, you can picture it. And I think the original poster did a very good job at, like, painting this picture, These 7 friends, they were all into the paranormal, into the ghost stories, all this and that. And they just wanted some spooks, right? So, okay, cool. They wanted to set out and, get in that Halloween spirit, just like anybody else would. Which, I mean, I don't know if I would take that same route that they did, but hey, to each their own, right? So, they went out there and, I don't know, like, I think there's just something scary about it. I know in the end they said, like, okay, this person, whatever the heck it may be, was out there and just dancing around by themselves. It's kind of scary to think, like, before they even realized this person was there, this person could have been dancing the entire time, right? And they could just be doing whatever the heck they may be doing, this person, this thing, enjoying themselves. Who knows what it is, right? If we're assuming that this is some sort of, like, creature sort of thing, like, you have to think, like, maybe this is their, like, territory, right? And it wasn't until they shined the flashlights toward them or, like, brought attention to it that, like, it noticed them and just charged at them. So it makes you think, like, what was this plan, right? Like, it said, like, does this person follow them the entire time? He was hearing these noises the entire time as well. Was it following them and just waiting for, like, the perfect moment to strike? What do you think?
Honestly, I was kind of thinking it of, like, kind of like what you were saying earlier. Like, this is, like, this entity or this thing, this person, anything. Like, this is their territory. Maybe, like, they were just hanging out and just dancing, living their best life or whatever they were doing, honestly. Because the way it made it sound is that, like, or at least the way, like, in the story, like, they were just dancing with the trees. And I don't know, like, I'm just trying to think, like, and picture everything. Maybe, like, they were slowly just entering this person's, like, realm or just space of just being. And as soon as, like, they kind of disturbed that, the person just grew angry with it and just charged right at them.
Yeah, like, I don't know much about that area, New York or just really any other state in general other, than California. So I don't know necessarily how that may be, but, like, when I think of New York, I don't really think of, like, a forest or, that sort of thing, but who knows? So, like, my mind kind of went to thinking, like, we hear these stories of, like, missing 411 and these people, kind of, like, talking about the Appalachian Mountains and, like, how it is there, right? Those trails, like, how it's so unknown and, like, you're not supposed to mess with it. I don't know if this could be, like, the same case here in this story where, like, they disturbed something they weren't supposed to, because they described it, right? They said it's very tall, lanky, and pale. I think that's what stood out to me the most. They said it was a, very pale person. I mean, it could just be that it was an actual person who, matched these same descriptions. Like, I mean, there are very, pale people, tall people, lengthy people too, But it could also be, like, some sort of entity. Like, it kind of reminds you of, like, Slender Man, very tall, very skinny. And, same thing, pale, but, like, he's known for, like, wearing this sort of suit or whatever the heck it is. But there's just something so scary about something so innocent as dancing around, right? Especially by themselves. Like, you don't really, I don't know, we don't really think of that, especially at 1 a.m. in the woods. Like, all these things together make it so scary. I think that's why the story is so beautiful, right? And it's something that kind of keeps all these friends together after all this time, right? They say 15 years later, they still bring it up to this day. So it's clearly something that stuck with them for, like, the rest of their lives.
I honestly, if that experience happened to me, like, it would stick with me for the rest of my life as well. Like, that's just scary to see. And I feel like that's, like, a main reason that if I were to ever go, like, ghost hunting with anybody or just to go ghost hunting in general, I would want to go in a big group, like, experience that together, be able to protect one another, just, like, react fast enough if anyone sees anything. And so I think that's, like, kind of like a really good part of the story, that they did go in a group at least, and they always say they didn't get attacked or anything, but it is still a very memorable story.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they didn't get attacked, which, that's the good part in this whole story. They made it out, even though they said they made that 20-minute trail walk or whatever into 5, because I understand, had the adrenaline pumping and everything, so, like, you had to do what what you had to do. But for sure, I feel the same way about, ghost hunting. If I were to go ghost hunting, I would want to go with, like, a group of people. I don't want it to just be, like, me and you, because, You know, going with like 7 people, you can take on whatever the heck it may be, you know, whereas if it's just me and you, that's kind of, you know, like, okay, if it's something that's powerful enough, it could take us both on, you know. But for sure, like, I totally agree with you.
I believe we had some good stories today. That's the end of the episode, though. And we usually like to talk about things at the end of the episode, you know, like TikToks or whatever. Last episode, we talked about like something that our cousin sent our way. What do you have for us this week? Because I know you told us you had something special.
Yeah, so for this one, I have something that we kind of mentioned, you know, a little bit here and there. Like it kind of goes with like, you know, our Duende episode. I talked about like these sort of different things. I know you mentioned it to me like, oh, maybe we can do an episode on this, but I guess it's like an introduction to this topic. So I found recently a TikTok of something that shows what seems to be a fairy caught on camera. And I don't know what area this is from. I just know that this TikTok this person is speaking Spanish, or not speaking, but I think they wrote like the caption of it in Spanish. So it's some sort of, I'm assuming, you know, Latin American country. But they show it, and at first it looks like some little like thing flying through like the camera frame, and you know, it's at normal speed. I guess if you have a really good eye, I guess you can kind of see it, and kind of looks like it is some sort of like fairy type thing. But if you're just like me, you know, I have really bad eyesight, you know, I wear glasses, all this and that, it kind of looks like some sort of like dragonfly or, you know, butterfly, something, you know, flying really fast. But here's the catch. In the video, after this clip happens, they slow it down, and you can see it has these little wings, and it's flying. It's not really flying in like a butterfly motion, because, you know, butterflies fly like sporadically, like all over the place. It's flying like very like uniformly, like how you would think maybe like a bird would, you know, like it's just going in this very straight direction, and it's not going too fast. But when they slow it down, you can kind of make out this little like body with wings on it. And Samantha, I showed you the TikTok. I'm curious to know, what do you think?
I found it very interesting to see like the little body and everything like that, and just when like just slowing it down, just being able to see just the features. I honestly I also wear glasses, so I didn't see it like at normal speed. It kind of looked like a weird bug at normal speed, but slowing it down, you could tell it's like either a very, very weird bug or like some like creature like a fairy or something. And I don't know if it's real. It's pretty crazy evidence to me, but like, I don't know if I'd say if I really believe in it, or I think it just makes me like kind of scratch my head and be like,
Right, I agree. I mean, I don't know if I believe in like the fairy folk and stuff like that, because personally, I'm not really into that sort of thing. But as you know, we continue with this podcast, I'm starting to like expand into these different like genres of paranormal, and I will say it's very interesting. We are for sure we have to cover this thing later in the future, because there's so much like history behind it and so much like lore behind it as well. But I think if this is real, it is one of the best pieces of evidence that I've seen, and I imagine it probably be one of the best pieces of evidence of anything paranormal, because it's so clear once, you know, you slow it down, because it literally kind of looks like, you know, like Tinkerbell, like that sort of thing. It's very small, like you can see the little, you know, legs, little arms and that sort of thing. So like it's very interesting, or it's very, you know, to speculate like, okay, if this is real, like, wow, you know, like who's to say that these things aren't out there? Because I know a lot of this stuff is chalked up to, you know, it's called paranormal because it's not normal to us. But what if this is, you know, these things are slowly starting to, I guess, be comfortable with us and show us their true selves?
I feel like there definitely are creatures out there that we don't know about because they don't want us to know about them. And kind of like with duendes, like the episode you did, like I definitely believe in duendes. I feel like I've heard so many stories, and like there's just so much history behind them that there has to be like at least some type of creature or something that people have been seeing or stuff like that. Kind of like how you were saying, like there's a lot of lore to these creatures.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's so much history with all these different things. It's hard to believe that everybody throughout history has been just lying about this. You know, this is just one big hoax that everybody's been adding on to. Because personally, I know I have seen things that I can't explain. Creatures, things that I don't, you know, I've never seen before or learned about or anything like that. Like, I can't chalk it up to this being an animal or this being that. So for sure, there are things out there, and I totally agree with you. Maybe these things don't want us to, see them, because who knows? They've probably seen how we are as, human race and what we've done to others. So I get it. I mean, they may be scared of us the same way that we're scared of them. But hey, we'll leave that up for another episode. Well, I just want to thank you guys all for joining us here on this special Halloween episode of the Calaveria podcast. And again, as always, if you guys have a story to tell, you guys know, send it into our email at calaveriapod@gmail.com. And again, share anything with us, you guys. It doesn't have to be the scariest thing ever. We gave you guys perfect examples of stories that aren't the scariest, but hey, they are weird, and that's what we want, right? We want to share it with everybody. We want to share it with your friends, your family, whoever that, wants to listen to these. And we're giving it to the people, right?
And if you guys want to support the show, feel free to leave us, or please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, anything. I would say anything you guys think we deserve, but I would appreciate a 5 stars. I think we both would appreciate 5 stars or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also rate us on Spotify, on anywhere you guys are listening to us on. Please feel free to rate us. We really appreciate it. We want to see your guys' feedback and if you guys are appreciating the show.
And yeah, guys, doing so, it helps us get, the name out there, and it helps spread the podcast to everybody else that may be interested in this sort of thing. But if there's nothing else, I think we should just end this off by saying Happy Halloween to everybody. We hope you guys be safe, especially if you guys are out there going trick-or-treating or partying. Be safe. Don't drink and drive for those of you that are able to drink. But overall, just have a happy Halloween. And yeah, stay safe, everybody. And Samantha, if there's nothing else, I think that's it. You guys have a good one. Peace.
Bye.